Hi. All right. Well, I didn't have, or rather, I didn't make time this morning to record. So I am recording while I'm walking, coming from work, going to get my kids, and having to catch another bus. And I thought, wouldn't it be cool if I talked about how Enoch continually walked with God, which is in Genesis, I believe, chapter 5, and it says it twice. And then what I read today, I read 3 or 4 more chapters, and it talked about how Noah was a righteous man and completely blameless in his generation. And he walked continually with God. So, what does that all mean? Enoch lived 365 days and then he was no more. He was taken up to be with God. Noah was spared, and because he was a righteous man, his wife, his sons, and their wives were saved. So I'm walking right now. It's raining. My hand is cold. And there's a certain pace that I'm walking at because I got to get to them. I got to get my son to actually pay attention and grab all his stuff. And we have to get to catch the other bus to go home. And so there's a certain pace that I'm walking at. There's a sense of urgency that I'm walking at. And when I think about what a continual walk with Christ is, there's a lot of pacing you have to do. I've never run a marathon. I have done a 5K, and I'm not a runner. But I would assume that in a marathon, pace is crucial. You can't start off a marathon like you're in a sprint. You're going to run out. You're going to gas out. You can't expect to keep that same energy, in the middle. But there's something about getting towards the end, and I would assume that getting towards the end, there's several times you want to quit. There's probably times in the middle you want to quit. But there's some portion at which you get strength in knowing that you are so close. And something about finishing well gives you the strength to keep going. And I think that that is the same energy in which we should approach this continuous walk with God. It's not going to be easy, but there's so much strength drawn from this walk with God, and we have to know what pace. When Jesus was on earth, he walked everywhere. He wasn't in a rush to do all things. Now, I think that if, just in my crazy imagination, if I was Christ and I was trying to, save the world, I would probably be like, someone get me a horse. There's a horse over here. The only time you hear of Jesus being on an animal was a donkey. So there was a pace that he was walking at that allowed him to come into touch with people. And there is something about moving super fast I'm also reading this book, the Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. And there is something about that energy of hurrying, racing, running, trying to pick up your pace that is unsustainable. And a lot of stuff just oozes out of you that isn't great. When I'm rushing, when I'm hurrying, I'm definitely shorter with my kids. I'm trying to race out the door. I'm trying to do this. I almost try to fit in something in between going to the bus and getting to pick up my kids, which would have been disastrous, right? And I think we can apply that sort of idea to our walk with Christ. Slow down. Slow this pace down, unless God is telling you to pick up, because there are going to be times where you got to pick up the pace. But I think I heard someone once say this phrase, and it hasn't left me: the cadence of Christ. And when I think of that, man, it's also audible to me. I think about God walking in the garden and how Adam and Eve, they knew his steps. Now, he's a spirit, so what kind of steps he was doing, I don't know. But there was a sound to that. There was a pace, there was a rhythm, there was a feeling as he probably moved throughout the trees. And I think that's pretty awesome. And so I challenge everyone to think about How are you walking with God? What does that pace look like? And is the pace sustainable? Something that I didn't say, because I had to stop and pick up my kids and they were playing in a puddle, so I got distracted, but is that as much, when you get saved, you are on fire. At least that's how I felt. Totally on fire, wanted to know all the things, totally vested, really drawing closer. And that's great. And there are going to be times where you're not as on fire. But the Bible says continually, right? And so that means as much as possible, there is still momentum. There's still moving forward. Walking is movement. And also there's proximity. When you think of with God, we can continually walk with other things. Been there, done that, not so great. So to continually walk with God is a momentum, is partnership, is relationship, and keeping on pace or in pace with God. Now, if I really visualize what this might look like, I'm sure I'm kind of short. Actually, I am short. And when I think of so walking with somebody, sometimes, there's my steps got to go twice as fast depending if someone's got a really long leg span. So at the end of the day, we might feel like we need to be walking faster. We need to do this thing. But God knows our span, our capability, our stride, and that pressure that you might be feeling to get to some place faster. Believe me, I feel it, and that might not be the case. That's one of those moments that in the witness, you have to take that to God in prayer, because you may be condemning yourself when God's not condemning you. And just like a good coach, God might be telling you to, pick up the pace a little bit or to slow down, because that's what I've been feeling. I need to slow down. And I think all of those things need to be submitted to. There's a lot of praying that we could be doing, and praying is just a conversation with God, and that's something that I've been trying to teach my kids. It's a conversation with God. I'm like, and it doesn't have to be crazy deep. Hey God, what's going on? It's me. And lay things out. And also, I think as you grow in maturity, the longer you've been continuously walking with God, I think also leaving room for Him to say stuff to you. In our immaturity, sometimes prayer and, the conversation is very one-sided. And while, He's up for all that and He can take it, He also desires to speak. And you can hear Him speaking through His word, which is why I think reading the Bible is so important. But you can also hear that, His part of the conversation in stillness, in silence. So just something I submit to you is, how is your walk? Is it continuous? Have you slowed down? Do you need to speed up? Is there anything that God is desiring to tell you? And would you know? Can you hear Him? There's just lots of questions, and I feel like there's no wrong answer, but the self-awareness is going to be key, and it will help you to keep moving forward. Okay, bye.